Good morning, everyone. It's just past dawn at my house on the back porch. Um, it's easier to film here right now because the air conditioner is on the other side of the house and it's not going to produce that low hum. Maybe you'll hear some birds chirping. But today I want to make a video about a movie I watched yesterday called Out of Shadows. And it's hard to find on YouTube with a normal string search because, uh, well, it's got a very common name. Now, I'm not talking about Out of the Shadows like the movie from just a few years ago that's a horror movie. And I'm not talking about an NFL documentary or all sorts of other things that use the phrase out of the shadows or out of shadows. What I'm talking about is a video that was uploaded in April of 2020 to YouTube, and since then has gotten about 15 million views, right? And part of the reason why I watched it was simply because of the conspiracy theories about why it's hard to find. And I simply chalk it up to it's got a very common name. But the people who are pushing this conspiracy theory on other websites, they seem to think that just because it got 15 million views, it should be on the trending list, and it never was. And so, therefore, YouTube is trying to hide it from everyone, right? It doesn't help that the whole movie is about conspiracy theories. Now, that's why I watched the movie, was because people said it was being suppressed, and I just wanted to see if there was anything about it that was suppress worthy. And I wasn't disappointed. You know, there are things that are themes in it that you would think that YouTube might want to suppress, given other things that they have suppressed in the past, things that they've removed, like recently some anti-vaxxer conspiracy movies that they've just removed. And I'll start with saying that there's this theme that I've seen in many different movements. I saw it in the Ron Paul movement. I saw it in the Bernie Sanders movement. I saw it in the Occupy movement. I saw it in many different places where they say, well, first they ignore us, and then they laugh at us, and then they attack us, and then we win. And there are many different variants to that quote. It's, attributable to many people, but the, the, the part of that quote that's most important is first they ignore us. In this instance, that's what's it's most important because you'll see in these movements they'll say, "Oh, well, the news isn't talking about this huge news story," and that means that they're trying to suppress it. I was like, no, it's just not big news. You actually aren't as big as you think you are, and if you actually are, just give them a minute. You know, if you've given them a minute and they still haven't reported on it, maybe you got something there, but maybe you're just not newsworthy. You know, um, so man, the movie starts out with a guy from Hollywood that he says he was a stuntman, and he has a lot of receipts to prove it, right? And this stuntman, excuse me, had to let my dog back in the house. This stuntman, he he is basically there to add credibility to the rest of the story, being about how Hollywood is controlled by the CIA. And so, him being part of the industry is lending credence to it, right? Longtime viewers of my channel might recognize this as the argument from authority. Just very misapplied. But what was more important about his story was it was actually a dog whistle to evangelical Christians, right? So is the slightly faded in cross in the title bar of the movie for Out of Shadows. Like, if you were to ever, you know, pause the movie or just look at the thumbnail for it, it's the word Out of Shadows. The cross is like there, very barely there, and then there's this bright light coming from behind. But it's not a very prominent theme. The whole theme of Christianity, right? But the story of the stuntman is basically a testimony story. He he gives his whole CV of all the movies that he's ever been in. He talks about one time he broke his back, and it was doing a stunt, and then somebody who he was very incredulous to asked if they could pray over him. And then that was his entrance into believing into the spirit realm, and basically from there he doesn't talk about the God side of things. He's talking about demonic side of things, right? And you're if you're an evangelical Christian, if you're immersed in that world, it's a huge dog whistle of like, oh, that's the point where he actually started to believe, and that's where he was saved. So this movie would play really, really well in the library of a Christian church, especially an evangelical Christian church. If they had their own little bookstore off to the side, which many of them do, it would probably belong in it. Now, the other part of the beliefs are completely not part of Christian canon, but it does take a belief in the spirit realm to believe that politicians and the Hollywood elite are getting together to do spirit cooking, to slaughter chickens to Moloch, and somehow they are controlling the world through having sex with kids and having a giant child sex ring. This is just Pizzagate recycled, right? It is basically every conspiracy theory you've ever heard connected very flimsily from the Bilderberg Commission, the Trilateral Commission, like network thing that's flashed on the screen for just a second. But basically, it's an everything conspiracy theory about how the world is controlled. It talks a lot about Jeffrey Epstein as being sort of like a puzzle glue to the entire mix of different conspiracies in it. But by the end, it tries to get back to the story of the stuntman. And what I realized through the ending was the stuntman is really just a non sequitur. You don't really get the true story of Hollywood from just like a stuntman and then his other friend that's a stuntman, and nobody else from Hollywood wanting to put their name onto this project. It really is just the conspiracy theories of, one or two nut jobs, but it throws in a journalist who's been pushing the Pizzagate narrative for years, and it does kind of explain how the pizza was used as a code word in the Podesta emails a bit, but really, I felt like the theme of the movie is you should investigate everything, just not this movie. You know, like, yeah, you're supposed to take the nuggets that you get from the movie and go further, but like, they're saying that Hollywood is manipulating the way that people feel about issues. And if you were to look at the movie itself and apply that same logic, the path towards believing in spirituality that the stuntman takes is a giant dog whistle to the evangelical right in America. So, yeah, just documentary movie, Know Thyself. That was my feeling that I left with. That's all I got this morning. Expect a few more videos from the back porch because it's a little bit more silent. And the low hum of the house doesn't touch this pristine air.